Good afternoon, and welcome to today's discussion between the Grand Forks Herald and University of North Dakota President Andrew Armacost. I'm Corey Wenzel, publisher of the Herald. This event is being broadcast live on grandforksherald.com, and it'll be available there for later viewing shortly after its conclusion. Today's conversation continues the Herald's series of COVID-related discussions, which we hope will answer important questions as the community continues to deal with the pandemic. President Armacost, thank you for joining us today.
Great, it's wonderful to be here, and thanks so much for hosting this event. There's been a lot of great cooperation between the University of North Dakota, the City of Grand Forks, the Public Health Department, all true, and the County of Grand Forks as well. And so that close cooperation, I think, is really important as we start getting ready to bring back a significant number of students, faculty, and staff to the campus. So this event is important for us to be able to share information for all the viewers and all the readers of the Herald.
Very good. I'll start with the questions. We expect to be here about 20 or 25 minutes today, and that will be about 6 or 8 questions, hopefully. First, just 9 days after opening its doors to students, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill is moving courses online. Beyond following COVID protocols, what are some real ways UND can actually stay open this fall?
Well, this is a great question. We're all paying close attention to what's happening nationally, not just at Chapel Hill, but also at other schools. I've been in particular paying close attention to Iowa State, which opened or brought students on campus about a week ago. And as we look at them, we realize that the protocols that we have in place for responding to COVID lay a tremendous foundation for our response. And so it's easy to say what beyond that. But I think it's important to recognize that the CDC recommendations and our State Department of Health and our local public health authorities have laid just great expectations for how to prevent the spread of the virus. And so prevention measures such as wearing face coverings, keeping physical distance, promoting good hygiene, and avoiding large gatherings are just standard tried and true methods for helping to minimize the risk of the spread of the virus. And then testing and response, of course. The State Department of Health has been fantastic in terms of providing the resources that we need to test a wide swath, not only on campus, but also within the community. And then our response methods, how we isolate and quarantine. So isolate those who are positive and quarantine those who are close contacts those are 2 essential steps that we have to take in the aftermath of identifying positive cases. And so again, we've gotten great support from the state for testing and contact tracing. But most importantly, I think I need to emphasize again that the social behaviors, I think, are the key, that faculty, staff, and students have to set the example for each other and to hold each other accountable to make sure that we're all collectively and individually taking the actions that we need to minimize the risk. Truly a behavioral issue, I believe, and that we're going to rely on each other, and really to emphasize the fact that this environment that we're in is temporary. So we need to be strong and take the steps. It might be inconvenient for the time being, but we need to work together to get through this and to minimize the risk of transmission.
What's your level of confidence classes will still be underway at UND in 1 month, September 21?
Right, so I'm very confident classes will be happening on Monday, September 21st. I'm 100% confident that they will be offered in a high quality way. That might be online. And so we've spent a lot of time over the summer, our faculty members and our Teaching Transformation and Development Academy members, it's known as TADA, have been working together to really make sure that our online offerings are robust. And so if one is offering a course in a hybrid fashion, so some elements in person and some elements online, we're able to easily make that transition to the online version very, very easily. So let me just emphasize again, our faculty members have really been the backbone of making sure that we can operate in a safe way, whether it's on campus or online. And again, we'll rely on the great tradition that UND has for offering high quality online programs if we need to go that direction. But let me just reassure everyone that regardless of the mode, online or on campus, all of our students are going to get a great UND education.
Did you vote one way or another on the 2020 football season? And if so, how did you vote?
So I, out of respect to the process of how the conferences operate, let me not share my specific vote, but really share the concerns that I raised with the conference members, all the presidents and the athletic directors. And I share those openly with anyone who talks to me about this. I wanted to emphasize UND has been testing every week for the last 6 weeks. So we've seen how steady, continuous testing gives us more information about the spread of the virus. And we've, through that testing, have seen the results that a single infection can have, and how it can shut down a portion of a team, or in some cases, an entire team for up to 2 weeks when we put them into quarantine. And so we know that the players desperately want to play, but we see how that single infection or multiple infections can make it impossible to competitively run a football program. The disruption is just so great. So in spite of the players' real strong desire to keep going, we think that in the best interest of player safety, that this on again, off again, start stop approach to competing in a football season just wasn't going to be safe, and it wasn't going to be the right way to compete. Again, given the physical nature of football and with the health and safety of our players at the forefront, it just seemed like attempting to resume the season in the spring semester is the right way to go, and that playing in the fall just didn't make a lot of sense. So that was my perspective going in. I won't share my specific vote, but I think you can probably figure out where I stood on the issue.
It was recently reported that there are 29 active cases, and that's as of Monday, among the 200 or so UND athletes on campus this summer. Does that number cause concern for what potential case numbers could look like when students return later this month?
Well, any number of cases on campus causes us concern because at the forefront is the health and safety of not only the COVID positive member, but also the close contacts, to make sure that we keep them safe. And in our long range planning for COVID, we identified sports as one of the activities on campus with a high risk of transmission. And we've seen that with professional sports as well. We see that with Major League Baseball and what's happening with football. Basketball has been a nice bubble, but college sports, we don't have the good luxury of wrapping all of our student athletes in a bubble like they have with basketball. And again, in addressing the recent cases, we wanted to focus first and foremost on the health and safety of the players and to quickly identify their close contacts. And early in the summer, we saw that the process of quarantining the close contacts actually had a tremendous impact on containing the spread of the virus. We saw just truly positive results from our ability to do the contact tracing and then to put people into quarantine. And given the results that we saw on the tests this week, UND Athletics has suspended workouts for the entire week in an abundance of caution across all sports as a way to mitigate the risk to all of our student athletes. And again, this is something that we have to do. We have to make sure that we take care of the health and safety of our athletes and all of our students to the best extent possible. And you know, again, we can't put a bubble around them, but we can take the steps that our public health experts say are the best approaches to reducing the risk. And that is prevention measures, and then testing, and then responding as appropriate. And so what we need to really focus on at this point is educating all of our campus, faculty, students, and staff on the best ways of preventing the spread of the virus and making sure that we can minimize the risk to all of our members.
And back to that one just for a moment regarding the second part of it, which was, does that add to concern of yours for the students that are returning? Has there been anything that's given leaders pause, knowing that within the athletic department there's 29 or 30 kids that have had it?
Well, what we know that as we bring students in general from across the region and across the nation, that there is a risk. And we see that at the other campuses across the nation. And so the good news is our pandemic planning team, which consists of a broad set of people across the campus, have been at the planning for months. In mid-March, they began their efforts to make sure that we were set up logistically and set up with all the public health treatments and the public health responses that we need to open up safely. And again, we can't say we're going to guarantee everybody's safety. What we're going to do is minimize the risk of the spread of the pandemic. Anyone who says they will guarantee that a campus is completely void of the virus, I think is not living in a real state. But what we want to do is make sure that all of those good measures that we've worked so hard on since mid-March are in place and operating effectively. And so what's happened over the summer has actually given us a chance to see how the processes work, to refine those processes, and to make sure that when the campus is at full strength, that we have the resources and the procedures in place to make sure that we respond effectively to any cases where the virus pops up.
Okay. Will the university take any sort of punitive actions against students who are not following COVID protocols on or off campus?
So we think that the first line of defense for making sure that students abide by the protocols is setting the example and educating our students, faculty, and staff on what the expectations are. So we've been very clear about the requirements and those expectations. But when those requirements and expectations aren't met, we've empowered faculty, staff, and in fact other students to approach others and to say, listen, I see that you're not abiding by what we expect, and we want to make sure that everybody feels a sense of empowerment to, in the interest of public health, to make sure that they can address it with anybody that they see. It's that collective behavior that we think is so important. But it turns out if a student, for example, fails to comply and fails to continue to comply with the requirements, this may be considered a violation of our Code of Student Life. And ultimately, it could lead to one's removal from the campus. But I have every belief that our students are taking all the warnings seriously, that the education efforts that we put forth, that they know they have a deep responsibility here to keep each other and to keep themselves safe. And our hope is that we won't see many cases like the one that you're suggesting.
Back to that question for a moment. You described, I think, cases within the walls of UND. What about outside, particularly parties or things like that? Is there anything that the university would pursue there? Right.
So those are outside of the university's jurisdiction, and this is where we hope that the education and the sense of ownership that we've given to each member of our campus will dominate, and that people will make smart choices not to go to large parties, that when they do get together to socialize, and let's face it, coming back to campus is a social experience, that seeing friends who they haven't seen in 4 to 6 months is an exciting time. That's why people are choosing to come back. Of course, they're coming for the great education, the face-to-face components of their education, but they're also coming to see each other. And our expectation is that they'll do it smartly, that when they're together and they can't, they're in a situation where they're with others, that they're wearing face coverings, that they're keeping their distance from each other, and that they're choosing not to go to large gatherings in tight spaces. So again, off campus is a difficult issue. We hope that the example that we set on campus by keeping distance in classes, by expecting face masks, will translate to good behaviors as they pursue their lives, their social lives, off of campus as well.
Will there be a hockey season, and should there be a hockey season?
This is a great question that many of your readers are looking at. As we've seen, all of our sports that begin in the fall have been delayed until the spring. And so I just have to repeat that player safety and health is our #1 priority. And we've seen the disruption that the virus and the CDC expectations for response have on our ability to pull off practices, much less a season. So I know that our athletic director, Bill Chaves, and all of his head coaches are meeting weekly with Commissioner Fenton, who is the commissioner of the National Collegiate Hockey Conference, and they're monitoring the conditions very, very closely. And so our hope is to make sure that if we play, it's at the safest possible levels. But it's I, along with the other NCHC presidents, who will determine what's in the best interests of the players, the coaches, and the colleges and the general populations at the colleges, as well as the fans. We want to make sure it's a safe experience for the fans as well. So we have to wait and see. I know we have calls coming up in the next couple of weeks with the NCHC, and just stay tuned for what the decisions are. But again, player safety is our #1 priority.
The second part of the question was, should there be, in your opinion, a hockey season?
Well, so it's at this point, it's premature to make that assessment simply because the hockey season starts later on than the rest of the fall sports. So we have some time to observe what's happening with the pandemic, observe our ability to tamp down the virus when it appears. But it will require the close conversation of Athletic Director Chaves, Coach Barry, and myself. And when we made the decision about football, that wasn't a president going off and making a unilateral decision or a unilateral recommendation, but rather it was a close conversation between myself, Athletic Director Chaves, and in that case, football head coach Bubba Schweiger. So the same will happen with hockey, I assure you.
You mentioned some phone calls coming up with the conference. Are those decision-making phone calls, do you feel, or are they status checks, or what'll happen on those phone calls?
Right. So I haven't seen the full agenda. I think for now, I think the next call within the next couple of weeks is a status check and an information update. And we'll be sure to, as soon as any decisions come out of the conference, we'll be sure to make sure that we also release a press release so that all of the great UND hockey fans are well aware of what's going on.
So one of the questions that we have here, and just so readers and viewers know, we presented the questions in advance so he could prepare and give thorough answers. But we did delve into one of these questions, and we're about to double up on a question because of some things we just talked about a few moments ago. So I'm going to rephrase the question, President Armacost. This one dealt with parties off campus. And I'm gonna tweak this question to ask this. What has UND done, or what will UND do to try and spread the word, or at least portray the message about the danger of off-campus parties? Meaning, will there be literature? Will there be meetings?
Corey, you're breaking up.
Oh, okay. Am I here still?
Okay, I just got still. Okay, let's try again. It looks like you're back.
That must have been a really hard question then, because I think that's how that works out, is whenever there's a hard question.
The recipient of the question says, I think you were breaking up. So you legitimately were.
So I'll start again. One of the questions we're about to ask kind of delves onto something we talked about earlier, and it's regarding off-campus parties and social events. And I'd like to ask, rather than how this question originally is worded, I'd like to ask, I'm going to tweak it a little bit and ask, what has UND done, or what will UND done to spread the word about the potential dangers of social activities off campus?
Right. So one of the most important sources of information that we've shared with our entire campus community, students, faculty, and staff, is information about our Healthy Hawks initiative. So that's available on our blog site. So blogs.und.edu/coronavirus. And there we have the full documentation and the full set of protocols that are in place. What does it mean to be tested? What happens if I test positive? How do I keep myself safe if I'm not infected? What dining resources are available? So there's a whole wealth of information out there on that blog site. And so that's our most comprehensive source of information. However, we're getting the word out through a variety of means, through events like this, but also I have every other week, I've had messages going out to the entire campus about the importance of keeping safe and the importance of those prevention measures that I talked about, the physical distancing, the face coverings, and the hygiene. And our students have actually taken it under their own initiative to put out a series of videos about what it means to be healthy and safe and respecting others when everybody comes back to campus. In addition, we have mandatory training, a COVID safety training that all members of our campus are required to take before they come back for the beginning of the fall semester. And then during Welcome Weekend, we're going to have a lot of activities where we address the expectations. And this is where our resident assistants, our RAs, are going to play an important role as well for those who are living on campus to spread the message of what it means to be safe, why it's important, and ways that they can actually enjoy their life here at UND while observing all of those safe protocols that we talked about before. So a whole wide variety of messaging and just making sure that people have those expectations. And in fact, tonight, I have my second, me along with the vice presidents and some of the senior folks associated with student life, have our second student parent Zoom session where we've opened it up to, I think last week we had about 500 family members tune in, and tonight we'll expect at least that number, where we answer their questions and share the importance of taking all the measures and to be ready for what happens when infections do pop up. What steps will we take to help knock it back down? So I think we've been very aggressive in our outreach to students and their family members, but also to the other members of our campus, such as our faculty and staff. And let's not forget all the testing that we've done. That should be a constant reminder to everyone that there is a pandemic happening. And I know we have more testing this week, I think Wednesday and Thursday at the Human Performance Center. And so I encourage all members of our campus to come get tested. And I think the second day of testing is open to the community as well. So so this should be a constant reminder that things aren't as normal, aren't quite the same as they were last year. In fact, they won't be close to the same. That the expectations that we have of our campus community is to take it seriously and to be safe.
You mentioned Welcome Weekend. What will Welcome Weekend look like this year, all things considered?
So interestingly, it's usually full of a whole bunch of activities where our students are together in mass numbers, and it's going to look a lot different this year. Those large events won't happen, but our faculty, staff, and our student ambassadors will be peppered across the campus to answer questions for our new students, to share information, and to help them learn their way about campus. One of the most daunting things of coming to a college experience is it's the first time you've been on campus. And so anything we can do to help them understand kind of the flow and the lay of the land is really important. But the key elements will include residence hall move-in, so people getting into their new homes, a virtual information tent. So what you would typically see on campus is an information tent where all of our student groups go, and the information is provided by key campus offices, and this will be virtually online, presented online. We have information sessions about technology tools and how to navigate our experience here. And then we even have an online performance by a professional magician. So there's entertainment opportunities as well as information sources. And I mentioned earlier, I've had a chance to spend time with our resident assistants, our RAs, and trust me, they're ready to go. They're ready to really make sure that the transition happens in a very positive way for our new students as they move into their new residences. So again, it'll look a little bit different than in the past years, but I think the experience will give our new students is a warm welcome to UND.
I'll end with one final question, and that is this. This is obviously the culmination of weeks and months of work for everybody over on campus, from the top all the way down. What is this feeling like, knowing that you're down to the last couple of weeks, and these kids are coming back to campus now? There's at least the hope of an air of normalcy. I mean, what does this feel like for you and the folks over on campus?
So on one hand, there's an incredible positive vibe that we're actually going to be able to interact, not through Zoom like you and I are doing today, but actually face to face. And so that important human element is something that I think we all thrive on. But we have to remember that we can do it at a safe distance. We can do it with a mask on. There is another human being behind that mask. It's the same person you said farewell to last March. But we need to make sure that we take those steps to keep each other safe. And then the other feeling I have is one of tremendous pride. I mentioned the pandemic working group and all of our leaders on campus who have spent since the middle of March preparing for this occurrence, this day, when our students come back in full force. And although we see things like you mentioned, the uptick in cases, and we see what's happening nationally, what I'm most proud of is the thoroughness and the thoughtfulness, the completeness that this group has gone through to get things ready procedurally, to get us ready emotionally. And so we're going to rely on all of that preparation to make sure that when things happen on campus, and they will, that we can tamp down the virus and make sure that we have an environment that our students can enjoy, our faculty members and staff members can enjoy, and that we can all feel like the risk is minimized to each and every one of us.
President Armacost, thank you very much for being here today. Viewers and readers, remember this will be available on grandforksherald.com as soon as this broadcast is done. And once again, just thank you for taking the time today and answering questions. I just don't think it's possible that we can ask enough and get enough answers as these weeks come by. So thank you very much.
Great. And just one final thanks to the city of Grand Forks and the mayor and his staff, and making sure that we're in alignment, because as the university goes, the city goes, and as the city goes, the university goes. So all of those safety measures I'm talking about for our students, faculty, and staff, I would encourage the citizens of Grand Forks to take heed as well, and to make sure that we keep each other safe.
Well, thank you very much. Bye.